Good morning. Welcome to Let's Get Growing Facebook Live. We're in the greenhouse today. There's lots of snow outside still, but hopefully spring is going to be here sooner than later. I'd like to get out into the garden, but it's still covered under about 2 feet of snow. But we got lots going on in the garden, so I'm going to talk about 3 quick topics today. The first one, we are in March. We are coming up to April. That's Easter season in the garden centers right now. Our Easter cactus, similar in look when they're not blooming to your Christmas cactus, your Thanksgiving cactus, or your holiday cactus, if you want to call them that, because the Christmas cactus and the Thanksgiving cactus, those two species, they're quite interbred now to get good bloom. And if you have one, you know what I mean. They usually start blooming around U.S. Thanksgiving. Often will push some more flowers out near Christmas. Often will push some flowers out near Valentine's Day. And then even again, you might get a little splash around Mother's Day. They have the big flowers that are kind of shaped like shrimps, right? Sort of like segments of flower. The Easter cactus, a little bit different. You will notice the leaf, or the pad shape, they're not leaves, they're pads. The pad shape or the stem shape, very smooth, doesn't have those little bumps on it. But the flower is a very different shape. The flower opens up, and if it was a little bit sunnier, they might be open by now, but they close at night. Much more of a starburst sort of shape to the flower. So these are the ones that you'll be seeing in the stores right now. The care, exactly the same as your Christmas cactus. When they're in bloom, don't let them dry out. They'll drop flowers very quickly. Once they're out growing, we'll put them outside at the end of May. We'll grow them in a dappled, shady spot all summer long because remember, like the Christmas cactus, these are jungle plants. They do not want full sun. Good sunlight, you'll see green pads with a nice little touch of red on the edge. That's ideal. If you see the whole segments turning red or turning bronze, then you're getting too much light. So cut back on that. Keep them watered as normal. They can get slightly dried between waterings. Feed them well through the summer. You get into the fall and the winter months, give them a nice sort of dryish break in cool, and that will help initiate flower buds. Very similar to the Christmas cactus, but a very different flower shape. So keep that in mind. They're in the garden centers now. Nice groups. Nice colors, too, that you don't get in the Christmas cactus as well. Another plant that I've been starting to lust over a little bit in the last few years are the alströmerias. Alströmerias we're all very familiar with, I think, as cut flowers. This guy here has a typical alströmeria flower on it. You see these long-lasting cut flowers, usually on long stems. And the cut flower varieties of alströmerias are that. Quite tall plants, 3 to 4 feet tall. Borderline winter hardy. Now, if you've got the right location, if you've got really good drainage, if you've got some good shelter, maybe a south wall of a building or something like that, you can get alströmerias to survive the winter. Some of them are better than others, but it is possible. And where we're finding a little bit more possibility with the alströmerias in the garden over the winter are all these new dwarf selections that have been bred for container use. So this is pretty exciting. These are great varieties of alströmerias that don't get the 3 to 4 foot tall stems. They get maybe 6 to 12 inch tall stems. They make really good container plants for full sun, and they bloom all summer long. So if you loved alströmerias in the garden, look for some of these varieties. in your garden centers now. You'll probably find them as a premium plant, probably in an 8 or 10 or a 12-inch pot, sort of grown out with bloom on them. I don't know how many places you'll find them as starter plants, but look around because you might. They're really wonderful plants. They are so easy to grow for the summer, and even actually fairly easy to keep over the winter. We've had no trouble keeping ours over and actually propagating ours to make more plants, and I'll talk about that in a second. But what we're seeing is ones like this guy. We picked this guy up last summer, and he was just a fluke, and I hadn't gone looking for him. I think he was the only one left at the garden center that I was at. And it's a beautiful one because it has this wonderful dark and green variegated foliage with that really nice yellow and pink flower bud on it. It's going to be a beauty, I think. I'd love to be able to try to find more of that. I'm looking for more of it, but it's a real winner. I think from a series called the Summer Series. This might be Summer Dance, maybe, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But the other one we've had for a couple of years, and we've been having a lot of fun growing, is this guy. And I love this one. Actually, I got to show you a few pots together because it just looks fantastic. It's stuck on the table here. It's a fantastic foliage plant. Look at that foliage on this dwarf Alstroemeria. Just outstanding. And again, it makes such an easygoing plant that it's just... I split these in half last fall after I took them out of the container I had them in. And I went from, I think, 5 plants to about 15. It was quite amazing. But I love this wonderful white edge that really makes it stand out. There is one called Rock and Roll that's been out for a few years, if you can find it. And it's the reverse of this one, with a white center and a green edge with a red flower on a stem like this one. This one's called Katrina, I think. And it has vibrant red flowers on very short stems. So it holds its big red flowers about this high off the foliage mound. It makes a beautiful sort of edger plant for a container, or grow it in a pot as a complement plant to a potscaping. Really, really stunning. Full sun, average water, average fertilizer, nothing really fancy. Let it get some cool in the fall. It'll start to go into a bit of a rest. Bring them in, and we kept these going now inside, and they're doing great. They're actually starting to sort of stretch. You can, like this one here, might get a flower on it, and you can sort of see them as they're all different sizes. The different stems in here. We'll get that clover out of there. They're all different sizes. There's new ones shooting up, very much like a perennial. Really fun, easygoing plants. Now, I guess the one trick with Alstroemerias is propagation. Alstroemerias are in the same family as Amaryllis and things like that, and sort of have underground tuberous roots, kind of like a daylily, but the crown is way down deep in the soil. It doesn't have a crown at the surface, and you can see that when I show you the new shoots coming out. You can see that they're all coming from what looks like far down the stems, and that's what they are. The crown is probably, see that one? See how they're all coming out sort of randomly, almost like a perennial would. The crown is way down here on some thin, very tuberous roots, so they're a bit tricky to divide that way, but you can do it. I can probably split these now, probably in half. You might look at these, though, and go, well, why can't you just take a cutting? Look at these stems. They look exactly like they should be able to have a cutting taken from them, except they won't root. For whatever reason, the structure of the plant, these cannot be taken as cuttings and get them to root. So if you want to increase them, you've got to split them, which can be very tricky. But look for them. There's a few different series out there now. There's the Inca series is one, and you might see one called Inca Ice in the perennial sections of your garden centers. It's one of the hardiest ones, and can survive. I have overwintered alstromerias here in our garden in Uxbridge. I've only tried once or twice. I did have success overwintering last year, but then I lost the plant over the summer. I don't know why. We'll try them again. But look for them in the garden centers. You're going to see them in the annual section in some varieties. You might even see a couple of varieties in the perennial section. So something to look for. Now, the third thing I'm going to talk about is poppies. There's lots of information out there about growing the annual poppies from seed. So we're talking about Papaver somniferum, the bread seed poppy, or Papaver roas, the field poppy. I'm going to sneeze, excuse me.
Bless you.
Was no stopping that one. Many articles I've seen talk about sprinkling the seed out on the snow, letting the snow melt, and then the poppies germinate. And you can certainly do that. Poppies will reseed in the garden. But how do you know where that snow is going to drain away when you're once you've sowed the seed on top of it? Probably all your seeds are going to be in your pathway, the cracks between your patio stones and things like that. Poppies do not need to be sown outdoors to germinate. They are actually a typical warm germinating plant. Case in point, here we go. This is Papaver Sissinghurst White, one of the somniferum varieties. These were sown about, 2 weeks ago. And I've just kept them under light in a coolish environment. So the area gets, down to about 15 at night, warms up during the day, back and forth. And you can see the germination here. We've got thousands of plants. Now, you can do them a few different ways, but I sow them directly into a little plug tray. So when I transplant, I'm taking out a little plug. Poppies are not really fond of root disturbance, but you can transplant them, so don't think that you can't. But we do it this way. This way saves a little bit of time. Now, when you open a package of poppy seeds, you see a lot of seeds. Poppies produce tens of thousands of seeds. And when you get a seed packet, you're probably getting 2,000 or 3,000 seeds in there, more often than not, unless it's a brand new variety. Quite honestly, I thought I sowed about 7 or 8 seeds in each one of these little cells. And I've got probably 20 or 30 seedlings in there. Now, the thing with poppies, the annual poppies, is you want to thin them out. So whether you direct sow them into the garden, or you do them in flats, or you do them in plugs like this, if you left this many seedlings in a cell, the plants are going to get this tall, and they're going to give you tiny little flowers on little shoots, because they're too congested. So what we do at this stage, they've just germinated in the last day or so. We're going to go in and we're going to thin out these seedlings. Meaning we're going to take out probably about 70% of the seedlings. And you're going to say, well, why did you sow so many? Well, I tried not to. I thought I was really watching it closely. But when you think about it, who's going to use 2,000 poppies in your garden? Nobody. So what we do is we thin these clumps down, just like as if you were thinning carrots or any other vegetable. You don't always, you plant 600 carrot seeds, you're not going to get 600 carrots. So we get rid of these seedlings, and that knocks it down to just maybe, I've got maybe even still a few more than I need in each plug. maybe 7 or 8. But what I'll do it again in a couple of days, as they get bigger, I'll come through and I will re-thin the seedlings. Now I do this because, like I said, if you keep all those seedlings together, you're going to get a congested mess of tiny little seedlings. If you let 1 or 2 big seedlings grow in each plug, transplant them to the garden or pots or whatever, you're going to get big plants that are going to grow 3 to 4 feet tall. They're going to have huge flowers on them, and you are going to be much happier. If you have an better control than I do, apparently, you could sow less seeds per pot to start. But, you know, when you get a seed pack, you know, if you spend $4 on a seed pack and you get 30 poppies to plant out, that's fantastic. So, you know, don't be too worried about thinning out these seedlings. But it's very, very important to thin out a bunch of them so the small seedlings that are here have a lot more room to grow and fill in. You will have much better poppies and a lot nicer garden with a few poppies. I know at gardens like Great Dixter, for example, they let their poppies reseed in certain areas of the garden because they know they want that poppy there. And actually, when in the spring, when they look at the soil of the garden, they'll see, you know, thousands upon thousands of poppy seedlings there, and they will remove 99% of them and leave 3 or 4 poppies in one area and scrape out a couple of thousand seedlings because they know that this will give the better results. So think about doing that. Seed your poppies in pots so you know where you're going to plant them. Thin them out. Keep thinning them out until you get large individual plants. And you can do that really with any self-sown annual. You know, you don't have to leave every seedling, and actually you're better to not. Give a few select seedlings lots of room, and you'll have great success. We got any questions this morning, Laura?
We have one. Mary wants to know what she can do to help her daffodil and muscari survive the heavy snowfall and thaw freeze. She lives in Ajax and planted the bulbs, and planted all these new bulbs last fall. They grew about 2 inches before the heavy snowstorm.
Okay, so this is a good question. It's one we get a lot. The best answer and the easy answer is don't do anything. If the bulbs are only up a couple of inches, nothing is going to harm them. Even this big heavy snow we just had last week, no worries. The bulbs are very used to this. And in fact, muscari, if you planted your muscari just fresh last year, you may not have noticed it, but muscari foliage comes up in the fall, stays there all winter, and then the plants bloom in the spring. So as long as your plants aren't a foot tall, and we get a really late snow that's heavy and knocks them down, that's a problem. At this stage, if they're just poking out of the soil, you have nothing to worry about, and you don't need to do anything. The plants will be fine. The worst that you might get is a bit of a brown tips on some of the leaves, but that won't even be noticed. So not to worry about it.
Also, Mary would like to know, and I know this was another thing you were going to talk about, but when is your mom returning to the radio on CKDO Let's Get Growing?
Radio show starting, coming up soon. I think if Laura pulls a calendar out, she can tell me exactly. So Let's Get Growing, the radio show, will be back on the air very soon. Laura's just checking the date. CKDO out of Oshawa, 1580 on the AM dial, 1077 on the FM dial, April the 1st, Saturday, April 1st, 9 a.m. We'll be back on the radio. If you are out of that radio station's range, you can go to ckdo.ca and listen live on your phone or your computer, so you can really get the show anywhere in the world. It's a live call-in or email-in questions, and Mom and I are looking forward to getting started again. So that's April 1st, 9 a.m., CKDO 1580 or 107.7 FM.
Also, Deborah would like to know if you will have Alstromerias available for sale this spring.
We will. On our open days in May, we will have some Alstroemeria varieties this year. We're going to have some of this one I'm excited about because we've been growing it ourselves. So we'll have some of that one. We won't have this one this year. But
I can't see that.
We won't have this one this year, but I'm going to try dividing it and seeing if we can get a couple of bigger pots going so we can start growing it out. But we will have a few varieties available for you to try. Super easy, very different look to an annual flowering plant. So I'm excited about having a couple of those to offer. We have any other questions?
Nope, that's it.
All right, we'll wrap it up for today then. Watch your seedlings. We've got our peppers sown. We've got our lettuces sown. We got lots of other of our slower annuals sown. You should be doing the same thing yourself. And we'll see you next week. Let's Get Growing Facebook Live. If you want to join us on our trips, we're still looking for a couple of more bodies to fill the last couple of seats. The trips are a go, but we want to get a couple of more people to come with us. Look at masonhousegardens.com/garden tours for all the information on those great garden trips. So until next week, thanks for joining us. This has been Let's Get Growing Facebook Live.